Welcome back to the program, everybody. Welcome back to another show. Welcome back to another episode. Good morning or good afternoon to all of my viewers, listeners, and Soul Tribe family. The name of this program is called It's a Conspiracy, But It Ain't No Theory. It's a Conspiracy, But It Ain't No Theory is a non-profit social service agency suicide prevention campaign. Imagine that. How do you think it makes the Suicide Squad feel knowing I run a suicide prevention campaign? How do you think the FBI feels about that as they're currently trying to depopulate my life? There's an agenda to depop individuals like myself. Alright, so suicide prevention campaign. Hey. Servicing the needs of families and foster children at risk. Lending my voice to help raise awareness by soft publishing a book trilogy called Lucy's Lair. Alright, so picking up right where I left off. I still have not remembered this by heart, so please bear with me. Lucy's Lair is a graphic novel based on true events following my life as a freelance artist. This program is intended to help encourage, heal, and empower survivors of cancel culture and rape culture, providing free information and evidence regarding child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, electronic harassment, gang stalking, conspiracy, and true organized crimes against humanity, collective and covert. Your company can help by providing funds in a grant or by donating goods and services as I continue delivering this information and evidence to the public and advocating for foster children in need. Thank you in advance for all of your support. Social currency is not the aim here. On today's episode, I am going to be discussing gang stalking, occult ritual stalking, hypersimulation theory, black ops, covert psychological operations, plus surviving the New World disorder per usual, surviving the New World War, surviving manufactured chaos, surviving manufactured karma spelled with a C, surviving white genocide, and surviving the electronic targeting holocaust. Surviving the electronic targeting holocaust. My name is Adrienne Alese. I am the author and creator of a book trilogy called Lucy's Lair. Part 1, 2, and now 3. Lucy's Lair is a book trilogy reflecting my life as a survivor of rape culture, child sex trafficking, and psychological gas chambers. On this program, I advocate for women's rights, basic human rights, and the rights of those disabled. I also advocate on behalf of the foster children in the CPS systems, orphans, single mothers, foster mothers, and those less fortunate. Targeted individuals or trafficked victims are predominantly women. 65 to 70% of targeted individuals are white American women or those who identify as such. And this makes gang stalking an illegal operation or hate crime that is sexually and politically motivated towards American women and their children or their family and supporters. This program is a dedication to the targeted individual community. The objective of the opposition or the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO 2.0, is to subvert all of the target's potentiality, to terminate and to punish all supporters and sympathizers, to round down the target's output and audience, to marginalize the target, to eliminate connections and networking ability. Alright, so in the video that I provided for evidence that you guys will be able to review and also look through, There was a few things that I wanted to note. And so, one of those things is that this is happening every single time I leave the house or have a public appearance. Not sometimes. So, interesting to note that this is happening every single time I leave the house and or have a public appearance. This is not a sometimes ordeal. This is an every single time ordeal. This forces myself to have to stay home and isolate. This is how they're forcing the victims of this to isolate. And then when they do leave the house to try to better their mental health, their mental state, it's forcing the victims of this to be reconnected to trauma. This trauma-based mind control is a bottom-up, attrition-based approach. So interesting thing to note, and there's going to be a few, maybe more than a few things to note, is that this is happening, these alien encounters, these demonic encounters are taking place and occurring every single time, not just sometimes. That is every single day, all day long, not just sometimes. It is way worse than it appears. It's way worse than people realize. It's way worse than people think. It's not that I'm suffering from some sort of delusion. It is actually worse than what the video footage is able to provide for evidence. So it's actually worse. It's not that I'm suffering from some sort of delusion. That would be the enemy. So it's actually worse. Interesting thing to note going forward is that it is much worse than people think or realize. Because of this magical force, have you guys ever taken any time to notice or pay attention to the fact that Star Wars has the Force Awakens, and there's an entire movement around that? The Force, as in you're forced, you have no free will. This is why. Because of this magical force or shadow force, I rarely leave the house anymore. So this is how they are forcing myself and victims of this to isolate. All right, and so the enemy is using technology to measure the intensity of each and every encounter. Alien encounter. The green guys, little green aliens, are symbolic for green toy soldiers. Replace the green alien with the toy soldier, and there you have your truth be told. Alright, so the enemy, it uses technology to measure the intensity of every encounter. It's using thermal dynamics to get a heat signature in order to exploit the emotional aspect, the spiritual aspect of the victim. So thermal dynamics is used to gauge emotions and to get a heat signature. It's also using lasers. Alright, so it's worse than you think. It's worse than you realize. Few things to note going forward. This is happening every time I have a public appearance and every time I leave the house. Not sometimes, but every single day, all day long. And at the same exact time, it's impossible for me to catch it all on video. So because it's happening one after another using obsessive repetition, and it's relentless when I say it is using obsessive repetition, all of these different malicious actors are malicious harassers and abusers. They need to be locked up. They need to be institutionalized. They need to be held to the same law that the rest of us are held to, but this communist group does not. It is not. It is very narcissistic in the sense that it believes that it is above the law. So it's rules for thee, but not for me. So in the video, you can see that there's a Ford Expedition or a Ford Explorer. Looks just like an undercover cop car. On July 1st, when I caught them undercovers in action, bugging with their police operations or their peace operations. Because as you can clearly see, okay, because of this magical force or shadow force, I rarely leave the house anymore. This is how they're forcing me to isolate and depriving me of my right to life as an American citizen. This is how they're secretly dealing with quote-unquote terrorism. Now, mind you, they are the terrorists, okay? This is how projection works. So, because it's guilty of terrorism, it's trying to project that onto a scapegoat, and it needs a place to put that. And this is how dark psychology also works. So, so it is a terrorist. It's a group or an occult of angry mobsters who are terrorists, legitimate terrorists. And this is just one of their methods. So, in any case, because of this magical force of terrorists, I rarely leave the house anymore, because as you can clearly see in the video provided for evidence, there is a crowd of angry mobsters that will appear to silently protest my life every single time I leave the home. And that's even if I just go out to check the mailbox. And it's not just worse than you realize. It's not just worse than you think. It is much sicker, much more mentally ill than you realize. It is sicker than you realize. It is much worse and sicker than you think. Alright, so I saved some video footage from last year around the time that I was injured, which would have been right around Halloween, coincidentally. And I was able to have some video footage to go ahead and compare and contrast these rituals, these death cult rituals that I'm getting ready to expose on this program. And when I went back to count how many people were involved in this, I did not realize, nor was I prepared to do the work. It took so much longer than I initially thought it was going to take. When I sat down to go back and to screen record or screenshot every single person that is obviously involved and affiliated in this gang stalking occult, this death cult that is dressed from head to toe in a cap, black cap usually, and black hoodie usually, not all of the time, because this has to be done using plausible deniability. Again, few things to note. All of this has to be done using plausible deniability, or else it does not work. So when I went back to screen grab all of the psychocytists that are standing in place like a relic, a demonic relic, it carries that demon energy, that psychosadistic, dark psychology that it is using, that it is weaponizing it is actually an extremely low frequency. So when I went back to see how many people were standing at the door, to see how many people were standing in the place of death at the door, it took me days, almost a week. I don't even remember, maybe longer. So I thought I was going to be able to sit down and do a quick little few screenshots so you guys can see. Maybe there would have been 10, maybe 12. I counted in this video alone, which is not even the full scope, 63. Much worse than you realize, much sicker than you realize. And few things to note, very interesting, how clever, how coincidental it is that it will come and slither up into my comment section like the snake that it is to try and call me delusional. 63 undercover agents that are affiliated in this one video alone. That's too much. That's too many. Lock them up. What is the holdup? And they have the nerve to slither their slimy, mentally ill selves like a snake into my comment section to discredit my experience and call me delusional. I think that is sick and sadistic. When in this video alone, evidently there are 63. Do the math. Count it up. Don't call me delusional. Thank you. Thank you, sweethearts. I know sold out for anal is not calling me delusional. Please. Called by God said sit down, sold out for anal. Okay? Delusions. Yes, they suffer from them. That is true. That's how they know exactly what they're doing and getting away with it at the same time, simultaneously. They absolutely do know that they're delusional, and they know that they're projecting those delusions onto their scapegoat. They know. That's what scapegoating is. So, it's definitely not a delusion that it may be even slightly a little bit worse. Oh no, that's not a delusion. It's much, much, much worse than you realize. Much worse. Like I said, I thought when I sat down to do the screen recording, the screenshots, I thought I was going to see maybe 10, maybe 12. In this video alone, I counted 63. And that's just one video. Another thing to note is that it is a very common gesture of respect to take your hat off, especially while inside. So very interesting things to note going forward. Another interesting thing to note going forward in the video, as provided for evidence, you will see how there is almost always a white vehicle driving or parked next to the occult, dressed in all black, black cap, black hoodie. And it will usually ditch the hat if I'm with any company, or if the company that I'm with has a hat on already, then there's no need. And or it will put the cap or the hoodie in a different color so as to maintain plausible deniability, and also on another person, like the UPS driver driving in the back, the kid standing next to the mother, and so on and so forth. The gentleman holding the door open for the lady at the store. They all have the cap. They're all in it together. Much worse than you think. Much worse than you think. So, it is determined to make communism the cause of death Very interesting things to note going forward. It is determined to make communism the cause of my death. Oh, yes. It places things meticulously in places so as to protect the identity of the undercover agents. So all of these things that you see randomly placed here and randomly placed there, they are props that are used in this setting, in this set, on this set. Okay. And these props are used to protect the identity of the perpetrators. And I can even go as far as saying they'll sell a vehicle with the cracked windshields to us. And they do this usually at rock bottom price too. You'd be surprised at what a great deal Geron tends to get with these vehicles. And they'll sell it with a huge crack in the front. And this is to protect the identity of the drivers that are in their vehicles harassing us. And you will have to get a bigger vehicle, because when you are driving a smaller vehicle, these narcissists, these psychosadists, they will hit you in a small car. They have no problem doing it. This is how they murdered Geron's baby cousin. They've ran me off the road twice when I was driving my Porsche Panamera, and I no longer drive the Volkswagen, the R32, the Golf, but they ran me off the road in that little Porsche twice, and so I know this is something that they frequently do. This is all to keep us isolated, to force us off the street. What a narcissist. What a dirty, dirty, dirty narcissist. So, it doesn't even have the right to be here in this country. Oh my gosh, I can't. I don't even know where to begin. So, and then it's going to treat us like that. Okay, well, you can deport me wherever you'd like. I really don't care. What are you so afraid of? Another interesting thing I wanted to note before potentially forgetting and going forward with this program is, does anybody happen to see or realize just how cleverly disguised the devil, death, is at the door? Don't you think it's ironic that there's all these really pretty girls holding the door open for you? How cleverly disguised death is at the door. And with all of that being said, it is very, very easy for these undercover agents of Satan to stage a synthetic psychological collapse. With all that being said, do you realize just how easy it actually is, or would be, or could be, for these death cult agents of Satan to stage a car accident? Because they've already done it to Geron and his baby cousin. This is twice now that they've done this, and they've tried to do me this way as well, so that's technically 3 times. It's just I'm a really savvy driver. Interesting thing to note before going forward. I'm almost done. I'm wrapping up here. Just give me 1 second. How is it that I can get strangers to believe what it is that I'm experiencing by looking at the video, but not family? Family members don't believe me. How is that? I'd be willing to bet that they're involved in this somehow. I've already had my mother confess that she works for the FBI. Now, I don't know if she was playing around, being funny. I don't know. But she did say she works for the FBI, and I believe her to be telling the truth. So I don't know if that's the case. I have not verified that. So this devil worship, something interesting that I want to talk about going forward, and I'm almost done, just give me a second. This devil worship or this alien worship, it's the same thing. Alien is code for demon or devil. And the reason for it, for all of these undercover agents of Satan to be dressed in head to toe, like Mickey Mouse, Disney's Mickey Mouse when he's performing his magic rituals. The reason why it's important for them to wear the black ball cap and the black hoodie, or just the hoodie and cap in general, is because it is bringing a curse to our lives, to our homes, to our relationships, to our reputations, to our careers, in the job setting, and more specifically to the community. And so it has to place the death symbol in and around the target, the victim of it, in order to strengthen the curse. This is really evil. This is really sick. And so anyways, you have to make sure that you love your body in a healthy way, because all of the hoodoo and all of the voodoo rituals, all of this death magic and all of this spell work and this witchcraft, it starts to take an effect, to have an effect on the body shape and form. If you've noticed, a lot of these quote-unquote traditional women work in the peace operations. They are very on the heavy set side, and they look like they're a sharing size. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. They're the ones targeting me. So don't target me if you don't want to be targeted or feel targeted, okay? Don't maliciously harass me if you don't want me talking trash about you, okay? And they look like they have a sharing size body. They look like they can go very easily from one, probably their boyfriend or husband, man, to another. Ideally mine. It wants me to be that size, that sharing size too. I'm not. And I'm very proud not to be that sharing size, because it's for everybody. In any case, it looks like it has the sexual appetite. It's actually big enough for more than one person. And it actually looks like it participates in sex orgies and probably sleeps with more than one guy in a day. Easily. It has the look. That's the look, and well, these Kim Kardashian copycats, these knockoffs, they're possessed with a transgender gay man spirit with the anal. That is faggotry. That is devil worship. And the only reason why they get these ass implants, excuse me, Lord, forgive me, and the only reason why they have these BBLs is so they can make themselves more sexually attractive to the rape culture, so that they can have anal. And so they are actually possessed with a demonic spirit, and that spirit is the spirit of a gay man who loves anal. And the pastor talks about this beautifully. I'm not a pastor. I'm just relaying a beautiful, powerful message, and I'm doing a wonderful job. I'm doing much, much better than these enemy haters are giving me credit for. So in any case, all thanks to me and my God, none to them. They're not going to take credit for my success. Absolutely not. So usually they'll ditch the hat or the hoodie if they see me with company. And so you see how the voodoo that they keep trying to admit, it has an adverse effect on them own selves. I don't know if you're picking up on this, but they look like they're possessed with several different demonic spirits, and that's why they're so heavy, and the baggage that they carry is a huge, massive burden. And the men that are attractive to these Kim Kardashian knockoffs, and that's why I called her a knockoff Nike. Anyways, the reason why they're attracted to these Kim Kardashian knockoffs is because they were groomed. And it's actually really sad. We need to pray for them. And they were more than likely groomed by another male. And they're secretly gay. Okay, so anytime that a man has a threesome with a woman and another man, that's the spirit of homosexuality. Anytime a man lusts over having anal with a woman, that's the spirit of homosexuality. To continue going forward, I don't want to get too deep, And then to go out here and watch all of this porn and possess yourself demonically. You know how demonically possessed you look, jacking off relentlessly to porn, having that deep-seated addiction. You look demonically possessed, masturbating as much as you do, watching porn as much as you do. Okay? And then to sit over here and do all of that discreetly, and then put all of that evil spell work and sex magic on the pure and innocent wife at home? Nah. So it's really interesting. Some of the video footage that I captured, I'm not going to be able to share because they look like on camera. The easiest way to describe these things is by saying that they look like zombies. So when they think they look good, I laugh so hard. I could not laugh harder. They look like zombies. Okay. Realistically, they actually look on the camera like little tiny bugs. That's how morphed their body has become doing all of this voodoo. They're actually cursing themselves, them own selves. They're going to end up eating themselves to death. Actually, it's very interesting how this energy magic actually works. And so in any case, I wasn't able to share every single photo, every single screenshot, because it doesn't even look or resemble a person. It looks like a bug. It's so deformed. Its body is so deformed that from afar, on the street, doing the street magic and the street theater and all of the hoodoo and the voodoo rituals, it actually comes across and it looks like a tiny little bug. You guys are going to sit over here and argue with me and say that's not a person, that looks like a bug, that looks like a cockroach. Okay, I'm not going to share those photos. I'm just going to call that a miss. Sometimes I shoot, sometimes I hit, and sometimes I miss. Those are going to be the ones that I missed. So there's actually more than 63, bear in mind. Like I said, it's much worse. These are not delusions. Delusions for the enemy, absolutely. Absolutely. The one that participate in psychosadist rituals, they're delusional. The one that's doing all of this for a Twinkie, girl, straight up demonically possessed. It'll pacify the abuse by lying and calling itself a, quote, teacher. It is very important to remember that these death cults and affiliates of it, members, they are not by any stretch of the measure a, quote, teacher. No. But it'll try to call itself a teacher. You know why? Because it is trying to get these lessons on down to a cellular and molecular level, which is why it uses trauma. Okay, so it's trying to teach you, use the trauma to teach you a lesson. I'm so dead. I can't even do this. Good Lord. Give me the strength, God. But it is very important to remember that while we do learn from our mistakes, from our trauma, these trafficking occultists are not, by any stretch of the measure, not even a substitute teacher, okay? They are lying. They are torturers. Torturers. Yes, that's what they are. Very, very, very important to remember that it is not a teacher. So those who the enemy has groomed or is currently grooming in these so-called scientific sex labs, these people, these individuals were actually groomed. And the reason why the enemy is grooming them for these, quote, sex labs is because they were groomed. And so that matches their personality type. And so that is why the enemy is grooming them. So we need to pray for them. They usually become groomers. People who have been groomed usually become groomers. And if they have a severe sex addiction, that could be a sign of a sexual predator. So